via Zoom. Classes consist of manifestation, learning psychic abilities, shadow work, and healing trauma. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
This is Psychic Medium Deb. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations, exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Partly cloudy tonight with a low of 23, then Tuesday clearing skies with a high of 42. Cafe Latte is unlike any restaurant you've ever experienced. Grab a tray and pick from their award-winning selections of soups, salads, sandwiches, and mouth-watering desserts. Cafe Latte, Victoria Street and Grand Avenue in St. Paul, or cafelatte.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us, share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, this Monday night, after we had some planetary alignment. We're going to talk about that in a second here. Also, I hope folks in Minnesota, especially the Twin Cities, will be enjoying some of this unseasonably warm weather that's going to be hitting us this week. So we're going to kind of get right to things here. Before we bring on our guest tonight, Anthony F. Sanchez, I want to ask Adam back in Eden Prairie, who actually went outside to take a look at the planetary alignment. What was that like last night?
Last night it was gorgeous. It was absolutely clear skies, and go outside. I think, let's see, I went out first time about 9:30ish or so. Me and my 16-year-old daughter, we went out and looked at it for about 5 to 10 minutes before it's like, oh, why can't this stuff ever happen in July? It's cold. We're going to go back in. And went back in, told the wife, it's like, it's beautiful. You can see 6 planets straight up, and they're right above our driveway.
Wow.
So ended up going outside with the wife, stood out there for another like 5 to 10 minutes. And again, wishing this kind of stuff would happen in like June or July. But it was honestly the neatest thing I think I've ever seen. And normally I don't get too hyped up over these celestial events, whether it be, a comet or any sort of, eclipse or anything like that. 9 times out of 10, I'm like, whatever, it'll happen again. This isn't going to happen again in my lifetime, maybe not even in the planet's lifetime, because it happens every 3.6 billion with a B years.
Well, it's not going to happen with that attitude. Let's just say that. So, maybe.
I'm not going to freeze my head like, I'm from Futurama or Walt Disney. So I'm not going to see the next one around. So I had to peep this one out. Hopefully by, I think Tuesday or Wednesday, when they're all supposed to be completely aligned, hopefully I'll be able to peep that one out. But even seeing it on Saturday was just absolutely gorgeous.
Fantastic. Now, we are going to be talking about some stuff that's really been in the news and a lot of different varieties. And so tonight I'm bringing on a friend that we've had on GhostBox Radio a number of times. Somebody, when you really want to get into what's going on, UFOs, great articles about UFOs, about aliens, about all sorts of things. You want to go to UFOcurrents.com. There you're going to find a lot of stuff that has been written by Anthony F. Sanchez. Anthony has been on the show before. We've talked about his book UFO Nexus, but he also has Modern UFO UAP Researcher's Handbook, as well as UFO Highway 2.0. We're also, if we can get some time in, depending on how this conversation goes, he has for many, many years, and I've had these as well, developed a number of ghost hunting apps. Matter of fact, it's companies called Ghost Hunter Apps, as it happens, GHA, and we're going to try to get to all of this. But right now, I want to welcome on our guest, Anthony F. Sanchez. Welcome to GhostBox Radio. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Greg, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Now, I was talking with Adam beforehand, and one of the things we wanted to talk a little bit about tonight was Stephen Greer, talk about some of the stuff he's been saying over the past few weeks. I personally, you and I did not talk before the show tonight. So There are some people Adam and I were talking about that to me are kind of polarizing. And I don't know who you know or who you are friends with or anything else. So I feel like I'm kind of stepping in uncharted territory with what some of my opinions might be. But at the same time, I mean, there's been a lot that's been going on. I mean, as someone of your stature who has been following everything going on with UFOs your entire life, what has like the past 3-4 months meant to you in terms of what's been happening?
The past 3-4 months to me seem to be this emergence of a new class of individuals that essentially are what I call the UFO rock stars, because they've become popular. They are speaking at private events that cost a lot of money to attend. Lou Elizondo, David Grush, and now we have Jake Barber. For those of you listening who don't know the name Jake Barber, because I'm sure you're familiar with the names Lou Elizondo and David Grush.
Yeah.
Those guys are tied strongly to the congressional hearings from 2023 and 2024 as so-called whistleblowers, even though I don't think they're whistleblowers, and I'll explain that in a moment.
Yes.
Jake Barber is the new guy, and he's the one that was on News Nation with Ross Coulthard. And this guy claims to have seen, flown a helicopter during the retrieval, a crash retrieval for a UAP of an egg-shaped UAP, an egg, a non-human egg. And what stands out to me is that immediately he too has now become one of the UFO rock stars. And there's a lot of infighting that is happening. For instance, there's drama that's I'm going to start calling it Real Housewives of the universe. Because when we look at the 2024 congressional hearing that just happened, there was a journalist by the name of Michael Schellenberger who was testifying in front of Congress, and he supposedly submitted a document on a special access program known as Immaculate Constellation. That is a secret project, a program where the government has been working on crash retrievals of UFOs, UAPs, and reverse engineering that technology.
Mhm.
Now, in the audience, right behind him was Jeremy Corbell of the Weaponized podcast. And Jeremy Corbell only gave him this 12-page document the night before. Yet Congress accepted it and added it into the Congressional Archives or whatever, under the premise that it was Michael Schellenberger. And there's a whole bunch of drama behind that right now.
Right.
And then on the other side, let's see some of the other drama. There's a lot of drama that's going on right now.
Well, and
Stephen Greer. You wanted me to talk about Stephen Greer.
yes, I do.
Right. So he is upset because Jake Barber, the egg UFO guy, literally went to Stephen Greer before anybody else. And then Ross Coulthart preempted Stephen Greer coming out with the whistleblower by putting him on the News Nation television broadcast. And what was strange about that is during the original 1 hour that was shown, there was zero mention of Dr. Greer. But on the subsequent broadcast, which I believe was 3 hours long, finally they mentioned the name Stephen Greer. Prior to the airing of the original 1 hour show, Stephen Greer was asked about Ross Coulthart, and he says, Ross, who's that? So see, there's this fighting.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to claim ownership of these whistleblowers in the UFO rockstar group. The Elizondos, the Grush, the Fravers, the Graves. And to some extent, even Kevin Day, the guy that was originally ostracized by the military, made fun of, humiliated. Later, it comes out he was telling the truth all along. Yeah, there was something called a Tic Tac UFO, and he was on one of the ships that was monitoring this Tic Tac UFO. So right now, some of the things that are, we want to talk about Stephen Greer. So one of the things that he's claiming is that the aliens are angry, that they're fed up.
Yeah.
And he wants us to know what these consequences will be if humanity continues on its current path. Okay, so what is he talking about? He's saying that the U.S. government, in tandem with its military, has established a protocol, whether it's through this CE5 telekinesis or psionics communicative ability, they are able to call these things and bring them down. They shoot them down. And that's pissing them off, according to Greer.
Sure.
That's one of the things that he's talking about. The other things, well, and then there's things he's saying that we already know. He's saying that these technologies have already been reverse engineered for the past 70 to 80 years. It's like, well, yeah, 1947, Roswell.
Yep.
Prior to 1947, 1933, a Magenta, Italy. Mussolini recovered a craft. So when we know that he shared that technology with the Germans, and then post-World War II, the U.S. got their hands on that technology. S4, the S4 facility in Area 51, Balthazar, 9 craft known to be there. So there's a lot of information that Greer is talking about that he's touching on, which is information that we already know about. But I think that right now what's piquing my interest is that, like I said earlier, it's the Real Housewives of the universe, because it's just a lot of drama that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
When we are trying to get true disclosure, when we are trying to get the government, the military industrial complex to admit what they know for the purposes of perhaps illuminating the public on technologies that have been suppressed, which we could have used, that could have benefited all of humanity, that's the type of information that we're seeking, whether it's 0-point energy or some other exotic form of free energy, things of that nature. We're not getting the information. And, we're seeing this back and forth with these so-called whistleblowers like Lou Elizondo and David Grush. Never lose sight of the fact that they still are attached at the hip to the Department of Defense. Yep. They can only tell us what they have been given permission to tell us. Why if they need to seek permission to disclose what they are sharing with us, are people considering them whistleblowers? They're not. They are part of what I call a psychological operation, a psyop.
Yeah.
The drones over New Jersey. I went on to Coast with George Norrie. I was on Clyde Lewis's radio show. And on both the shows, I made it clear what we saw over New Jersey and then subsequently across the United States was a proliferation of drone technology, not aliens. Everyone kept trying to say, oh, it's their alien. No, it's us.
No.
Why they are doing it is probably to gauge the reaction of the public to these mysterious aerial, strange aerial phenomena in preparation for something greater, like a Project Bluebeam or something that, and by the way, one of the things that they talked about recently was that John Ramirez, formerly of the CIA, he said that in 2027, the aliens were going to make themselves known to us. And then Ross Coulthard was saying 2025, all hell is going to break loose.
Yeah.
So between 2025 and 2027, we now have this window of when either some sort of massive UAP event is going to occur, or these non-human intelligences, these aliens, are going to reveal themselves to us. Which is it? I don't know. Could it be both? Possibly. That's probably why we saw the drones. They were conditioning us and or gauging our reaction to this strange phenomena to see if it was going to freak us out or not.
It's interesting because, first of all, I'm happy to hear that I don't have anything to worry about in terms of some of the people I wanted to talk about, because you've already been doing so. And I'm glad that we're on the same page with that. One of the things that I'm switching gears on it slightly, and we're going to need to take a break here in a second. But one of the things that I find very frustrating, especially about the congressional hearings, is that you have two people, that were very, very instrumental in it. You named one, Corbell, the other being George Knapp. I find that these people are fear mongering. That there isn't anything that's actually anything more, and to a certain extent, I feel Greer is doing the same thing. Because, and I in the next break, maybe we could break down a little bit more. You did a good job about it. Like, I'm watching stuff that he's talking about. I don't even really understand what he's talking about, because he's kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it feels like fear is something that is attached itself to everything that's going on with this, with either the drones or the stuff that Greer is doing, or the congressional hearings. Am I far off with that?
No, and remember, Stephen Greer has a track record of over 2 decades now of somewhat fear-mongering. And I've known Stephen Greer, not personally, but of Stephen Greer, going all the way back to 2005, 2004. Mm-hmm. And one thing about Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer, which has been consistent, is that he has had this propensity to perpetuate a narrative of fear. And that's understandable. Within the UFO community, there's a lot of people that do that. I've tried to refrain from doing that, back in 2012, when 2012 was going to be the end of the world. I had read up on Terrence McKenna and the I Ching, he had talked about 2012.
Yep.
And I was kind of a little bit afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of fell into that, umbrella of fear. But then nothing happened. A great movie came out. I loved the movie 2012, but nothing happened. So since that time, I've taken all of the fear-mongering narratives with a grain of salt. And look, I'm not saying anything bad about Dr. Greer. He did found this CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind protocol. A lot of my friends who are in MUFON, I'm a member of MUFON, have been since 2010. They go out on the weekend and they use his app to do the meditation and communicate with the UFOs. I'm different. I'm more of a nuts and bolts kind of guy. I just go out with my Gen 3 night vision, look up in the sky, and say, oh, okay, there it is right there. I didn't have to meditate. But Greg, that's the other thing you need to look into. Why is it By the way, a year ago, I wrote an article series, a 3-part series called the UFO Faith Enigma. Why is it that we are seeing this amalgamation of religion with the ufological?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the aliens, the non-human intelligences, the non-human entities, whatever you want to call them, they're angels or they're demons. Yeah. Joe Jordan of MUFON, who was a state section director, I believe, for Florida before he went to Taiwan, led a study, a part of MUFON, where abductees who had encounters with grays had evoked the name of Jesus Christ, and it made the grays go away. Now we're hearing Jake Barber talk about this religious experience that he had when he was near the egg, and that it was a female presence, like the Virgen de Guadalupe or the Lourdes. Or I just wrote an article right now on UFO Currents that parallels, religious events within Catholicism, where they see this female, this angelic presence tied to Mary, and I think it's strange that we're seeing this amalgamation of religion with the ufological, and the demon or angelic narrative is now playing a strong part.
Now, I want to talk a little bit more about that, but I need to get a break in here. So why don't we do this? Folks, also, if you have a question for Anthony F. Sanchez, put it in the comments, because this is great information. We have one of the best people to talk about this with us tonight, and take advantage of it 100%. When we get back, we're going to continue our conversation about disclosure with aliens, with everything else. There's a lot to talk about. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville.
Reach your highest level of consciousness and well-being with metamorphosisconnections.com. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory of the best holistic and metaphysical practitioners to help you make your most informed choices. You can search metamorphosisconnections.com for classes, events, wellness and life coaches, plus metaphysical products and shops. You can also search for a wide array of healers from all modalities, including EFT, sound healing, energy healing, light therapy, ancestral healing, shamanic healing, reflexology, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, yoga, and more. And if you're not sure where to start, the search feature on metamorphosisconnections.com is tailored to help both those who know what they are looking for and those who are just starting. Come explore the possibilities for your higher self by visiting metamorphosisconnections.com. Their experienced practitioners can guide both beginners and those that are already on their spiritual journey. That's metamorphosisconnection.com, your link to direct you on your spiritual transformation.
And welcome back to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us on this fantastic Monday evening. We have with us tonight Anthony F. Sanchez. He has written so much about UFOs. If you have not had a chance to check out his books, go to his website. His website is ufocurrents.com, ufocurrents.com. He has books available. He does a lot of articles. If we can, we're going to also talk about his Ghost Hunter apps as well. We're having a conversation about disclosure, kind of prompted by, Dr. Stephen Greer creating this sort of buzz around around what he wants to disclose, how soon he thinks disclosure is going to happen. And, you know, Anthony, the last segment you talked about, what's his name, who went on the retrieval with the egg.
Jake Barber.
Jake Barber, and said he had like this female presence, you know, Mary and all that. I also wonder too, has anyone ever it also tried to make it sound like, you know, a female mother egg, like life, you know, sort of like, you know, it just seems to me that it's also like almost trying to create a metaphor for creating life. You know, it seems like an interesting scenario there.
Right. You know, before I jump into that, I just want to premise this next part with something. I am a Christian. I was, you know, born and raised a Catholic. And then later I became a born again Christian, you know, when I'm 12, 13 years old. I do believe in Jesus. And I'm not one to disparage Christianity or any faith for that matter. I respect all faiths, all religions. But where I was headed with that earlier, that premise, was that I just find it strange that there's this amalgamation of both Christian with what some people refer to as almost a science fiction narrative of the ufological.
Absolutely.
So with regards to what you just asked, I cannot conjure up any immediate examples, but when we do think of this female presence where humans have encountered, now this is where it gets interesting, where humans have encountered a non-human entity, whether it be some sort of interdimensional manifestation or a physical manifestation. I could give you two examples. In 1917 in Portugal, there was the Lady of Fatima, who appeared to 3 children.
Yep.
And then about 200 years prior to that, in Mexico, there was a gentleman by the name of Juan Diego who had a very similar incident occur where he saw the Virgen of Guadalupe. And this is the example that I provide in my most recent article of 2 female forces of power, forces of nature, spiritual entities that appear to humans. And they communicated to them telepathically. There was no audible communication that others could hear.
Yeah.
When these individuals were speaking to these women, it was telepathically.
Yes, it was.
Similar to what Jake Barber stated with the egg. He felt love, emotion, this inner strength, this intrinsic connection to this being emanating from this egg, and it was a religious epiphany. A moment in time that drove him towards the spiritual nature of what was occurring. So I just find it very interesting. And I would like to ask other people who study these things, why are we seeing this connecting of the 2 areas that are, you know, areas of study, whether it's the theological versus the ufological? Why are they coming together?
And I would also say too, and I also have grown up Roman Catholic, and the 2 sightings of Mary that you had mentioned, I've read extensively about because I find it very interesting. I think it's dangerous though when he is equating something that should, in my mind, be more looked at from a scientific level and a more unbiased level than to start giving off one religion, you know, one faith. To me, that I don't like that, because I find that to be really forcing the narrative.
And that's a good point. So where I would counter that point is that we could look at cultures from around the world where individuals have had these spiritual interactions, this divine interaction with entities that became deities or gods or of their culture, which has nothing to do with Christianity. For instance, I often posit that what if throughout the course of Earth's existence as a planet within the solar system, going all the way back to its beginning some 4.1 billion years ago, there emerged a non-human, non-mammalian, perhaps a connecting species closer to the dinosaurs than to us, that achieved a level of technological advancement and superiority over what we know today. Even with all of our advanced artificial intelligence breakthroughs in quantum computing, there could have been another species on Earth, let's say, just 300 million years ago, and that they left prior to one of the cataclysms that took them out, took one of the extinction events.
Yep.
What if one of those species still remains on Earth, but in a subterranean fashion beneath Antarctica or some beneath Dulce, New Mexico, right?
Yep.
Who knows? What if these are the species that humans have seen over the last 10,000 years occasionally that speak to us telepathically, and then us with our tiny little monkey brains think that's a god, that's an angel, that's a demon. Do you see my point? You see where I'm going with this?
Absolutely. I think
it could apply to any religion.
It can apply to any religion. I also think too that that's where someone like you and I and many others would probably look at that because at those points those people weren't maybe aware of there's other entities other than humans.
Right.
Here,
you remember John A. Kill wrote the book on the ultra terrestrials.
Yeah.
And the ultra terrestrials are a class of entity that exists outside of the visible spectrum of humans. So think about this. We are made of matter. Everything around us is made of matter. There's dark matter, and then there's antimatter, and there's normal matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of that exists within spectrums. Now, we can see within a certain visual spectrum, but outside of that spectrum, we need to use the James Webb Space Telescope to see, or the Chandra Observatory to see things that exist outside of the normal visible spectrum. What if we are seeing UAPs? What if we see ghosts? What if we see angels? What if we see aliens? And we are misinterpreting all of that when every once in a while, one of these ultra terrestrials happens to peer into the visible spectrum. And we see, oh, it's an angel. Oh, it's an alien. Oh, it's a UFO. Oh, it's an orb. Chris Bledsoe. And by the way, Chris Bledsoe, like Jake Barber, says that he had this communication telepathically through psionics with the female entity. So you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
These can all be seeing the same thing, going, in tandem with this premise that John A. Kill talked about, which was ultra terrestrials.
I also find it. I'm glad that you're touching on some of this stuff. For people who listen to the show, knows that one of my most favorite subjects as of late is exactly what you're talking about. What if we're misinterpreting things? And one of it being one that I mean, you broadened the spectrum on it farther than I have. My thing has always been like, spirit communication, which you're very well aware of. You're creating the apps and stuff for it. That what if that's actually alien communication? I mean, it's stuff like that I find that we need to be far open for. Another thing, right. I just want to make sure that I get to, because I also agree, and there's an arrogance, I think, to the human race. I mean, that's an understatement, but there's an arrogance, and I love how you kind of say it, is like, the planet's been around for 4.1 billion years. There's no way that we can say with any certainty that we have been the most advanced civilization on this planet. And And I think that's a great point that you put out there for sure.
Right, and I'm not the originator of that theory. There, for instance, Randall Carlson talks about these regularly occurring cataclysms which have taken out humanity and reset us back to the Stone Age. For instance, if we look at Göbekli Tepe, which is in Turkey, which was discovered in the 90s by a German archaeologist, Göbekli Tepe shows us that we were wrong.
Mhm.
We thought, between the Tigris and Euphrates River was the cradle of civilization 8,000 years ago. That's when we learned how to write with cuneiform, whether it was Canadian cuneiform or whatever. No, there were people before that going 12,500 years ago. And if you go to Pumapunku and other areas around the world, there's evidence of human civilization existing as far back as 12 to 15,000 years ago. Not to mention that we are seeing megalithic structures, polygonal masonry that is identical in Egypt and South America. And it's like, how did that happen? How did two separate, disparate civilizations on the other side, either side of the globe, do the exact same thing over 12,000 years ago? How did they move 50,000 ton stones when supposedly they didn't have technology to do that sort of thing? So we have a lot of questions that need to be answered. Mainstream archaeology, mainstream academia tends to have a very narrow focus when it comes to these matters.
Yeah.
So we just need to be able to think outside the box and, ponder on these ideas that come in from non-traditional sources, like a Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson. Those are not the only two, but there's a lot of discourse that takes place that sheds light on a lot of these unknown facts.
Do you think that
or ideas?
Yeah. Do you think that as you do traditional archaeology, as you call it, do you think the main bias here is the thought that the Earth has never been as advanced as it is at this moment, and therefore going back, it just like anything else is out the window?
Right. So there is a lot that frustrates me as a researcher. Now, I'm not a scholar. I have a bachelor's of science in computer information systems with an emphasis in software engineering. I've worked in the semiconductor industry for over 20 years, Silicon Valley, and I've worked at major companies, right? Like Intel, 3Com. But as a hobby, I've studied for years.
Yeah.
I've studied, I've read. I grew up with the Encyclopedia Britannica back in the 1970s.
Yep.
So it frustrates me when I hear somebody in Egypt like Zawi Hawass argue adamantly and so rigidly that the Sphinx is only 4,000 years old. When Robert Schoch and John Anthony West clearly demonstrated that the water erosion on the sides of the Sphinx is 50,000 years or even older. I mean, I may have that incorrect, but I know it's a lot older than 4,000 years.
Yeah.
So I remember part of the study that they did a blind study where they showed a photograph, a high definition photograph of the outer walls of the Sphinx enclosure, or the inner walls of the Sphinx enclosure, and they showed it to mainstream archaeologists and geologists from around the world. And they said, oh yeah, that's 20 to 30,000 years of water erosion. And then they presented that, and the minute they realized they were talking about the Sphinx, people lost their minds. Oh, no, it's only 4,000 years old.
Amazing.
Whoa. You know why? That happens? Because they don't want to challenge the religious narrative.
Yep.
The religious narrative from the Bible or the Torah or the Tanakh or the Quran. Anything that is within the religions, when the religions of the world, if they've already set the precedent for what we need to believe, for instance, some parts of Christianity will tell you the earth is only 6,000 years old. Dinosaurs and humans lived together around 5,500 years ago. Do you believe that? I don't believe that.
No.
Because I believe in this scientific narrative
Yep.
that says dinosaurs were wiped out 65 million years ago.
Yep.
And the descendants of dinosaurs are birds, because the fossilized remains of dinosaurs happen to be almost identical to the current living aviary, contingent on this planet. So it's very frustrating.
I need to take another break. When we come back, we're coming into our final segment. If you have a question for Anthony Sanchez, and definitely go to UFOcurrents.com and check out his articles that he's talking about. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more with Anthony Sanchez talking about disclosure, aliens, UAPs, you name it. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Are you one of thousands of individuals who know you have psychic abilities but don't know how to tap into your higher self? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who offers classes that can help you reach your goals. Refined Divine holds classes Monday and Thursday at her 2 locations and via Zoom. Classes consist of manifestation, learning psychic abilities, shadow work, and healing trauma. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
This is Psychic Medium Deb. You can go to refinedivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations, exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey, bacon, avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We are going to have, for the third time, hopefully we actually get it to work this time, we're going to have on Rick McCallum. We're going to be talking, he's a stuntman. He's worked with folks like Kane Hodder, and they actually formed their own paranormal team. And we're going to be talking about that. We've been trying to get Rick on since December, and either between him or myself, it hasn't been working. So tomorrow should be the charm. Wednesday, we're going to have on Liz Johnson from Megas Books. We're going to be talking about esoteric herbs. And then Friday, you got to join us on Friday because we're going to be live from Council Room, the Doctor Who convention. And I'm going to be there this weekend. I'm going to be interviewing Peter Davison, who on stage, and Nicola Bryant. They both appeared in the series. And if you want to go, come out to see the convention. It's a lot of fun. Go to console-room.org, console-room.org, and get your Doctor Who fix in. That's all I'm going to say. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we are talking and having really quite the incredible conversation with Anthony F. Sanchez. We been talking about, it started off about what we've learned from, if we learned anything from Dr. Stephen Greer, to be talking about evolution and all sorts of great things. You got to go check out his website, UFOcurrents.com. Lots of articles, lots of things that we're going to kind of help inform you in a lot of ways. And you might want to go and try to check out that episode of Coast to Coast where Anthony was on. That was back in December of 2024. And then don't forget to check out his books, UFO Highway 2.0, The Modern UFO UAP Researcher's Handbook, UFO Nexus, A Journey into Alien Realms and Cosmic Secrets. You got to go check out UFOcurrents.com. got a couple of questions here, and let's see here. Where do we start? How about with let's see here. Joshua asked the question, do you believe alien races have religion? That's an interesting question.
Well, if you look at humanity,
Do I have to?
it's people often believe that humans in their very early stage worshiped the sun because it was the one thing that was life-giving.
Yep.
And it ushered in a new day where we were productive. We could see one another. We weren't frightened in the caves.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go as far back as the Neanderthals with some of the paintings on the walls in France in the caves, and you look at some of the depictions of early artwork, there are telltale signs of what could be looked at as religions. So my answer is, why wouldn't aliens or other non-human entities that share Earth with us not also have religions based on early formation from things such as the sun or the moon or the stars? Yeah, sure. I'd say yeah.
It doesn't seem impossible, does it? And
No.
I think that's a fantastic question.
Great
Josh.
question.
Really appreciate that. And I mean, it's, and within that question, to me, there's a lot of layers that can go into that, because it's like, first of all, you and I both said that we have our religious beliefs. We have in our mind, and you know, it's even, quite frankly, I personally come from the line of sight of thinking that of all religions on Earth ultimately are connected. So who's to say that all religions in the universe perhaps are connected? I don't know. You know, like what if we're all worshiping the same thing? I don't know. It's
right.
You know, someday I think we'll all find out in some way. But you know, I find that very fascinating. And I don't know. It's such a. I mean, what are we more connected than we are separate?
You know, it's interesting because, like we were talking about earlier, it's possible that if there is another species that exists within our reality, but outside of our visible spectrum,
right,
such as these ultra-terrestrials, and around the world, they happen to occasionally pop in so that we see them. In Europe, we would have called them angels, or we would have called them demons. In the Middle East, they would have called them the jinn, or, you know, in Asia, they would refer to them as something unique to that, whatever culture it was that saw them there. They could very well be the same entities, just interpreted differently amongst the disparate cultures around the globe.
I call them reptoids. That's what
they can be reptoids. They can be reptoids.
You know, if anyone has questions about talking about UFOs and stuff, keep them coming. But Tracy has a question, and she's like, I know this deals with UAPs, but can you talk about the Vosbus MK2? Am I saying that right?
And I think Tracy contacted me earlier tonight, and I was going to write her back.
Instead of writing her, you could just use my show as a way to communicate with her again.
Beautifully. So she asked me the question. She said, is the EMI GhostBox live radio, or is it an audio bank? Well,
and this is something you made. This is part of your Ghost Hunter apps.
Right. So the Vosbus Mach 2 and the SED Archon are the newest technological innovations from Ghost Hunter apps. Remember, I'm a software engineer of over 25 years now.
Yep.
And I was the first person to make ghost boxes that utilize Bluetooth technology so that they can scan the ISM, the industrial, scientific, medical radio frequencies. There's 85 of them. No, there's not people talking on those. There's no music on those. They are radio frequencies. It is EMI, electromagnetic interference, which is the same as radio frequency interference.
Sure.
So essentially, my ghost boxes are K2 meters. When you have a laptop and you're running one of my ghost boxes, you are using a K2 meter. So the EMI ghost boxes are curated historical radio shows from the 1930s all the way to now. Why? So that when you're not on the internet, but you want to have a ghost box performing, what I do is I use Bluetooth to scan the frequency, the ISM frequency,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll read the signal strength. When it reads a low signal strength, it'll pull from a certain area of the curated radio. But when I say curated radio, historical radio, all of it has been digitally remastered to 432 hertz, which is the Schumann resonance, which matches what some people call the heartbeat of the earth.
Okay.
So it's very powerful. So there are multiple languages. You'll hear French, English, you'll hear Arabic, you'll hear German. So it's funny because when I first started doing ghost boxes way back in 2012, working with analog ghost boxes, like a Hack Shack, I don't think you were familiar with those.
Absolutely, yeah.
I would get Spanish stations, I would get English stations, I would get jazz, I would get heavy metal, I'd get rap, hip-hop music, country and western, multiple languages. I would get some of the college stations, which would have Vietnamese and Tagalog, which is from the Philippines. So similarly, with the ghost boxes that I developed, we have a global audience. The United States is not the only country that has ghosts. Ghosts are from around the world. And by the way,
Yes.
I'm working with two people right now, good friends of mine. I'm working with Sarah Sophia up in Canada and Michelle Koff over in Germany. And these two are high-level paranormal professionals with years of experience in working with analog ghost boxes and now software ghost boxes from Ghost Hunter apps. So my answer to Tracy is, when you click on the Shoutcast, that's live radio. It'll be scanning all the live radio stations for you from the internet. But when you click on the Bluetooth EMI, that's a different radio. That's two radios. Each ghost box has two offline radios, which are very powerful.
So we have about 4 minutes left. So with that, is the theory, and correct me if I'm wrong how this works, theory is that spirit would be drawn to certain words that are in this bank of radio shows, or what? How does spirit know what to?
It's a little bit more complex than that, and I know we don't have a lot of time left. So what I do is I have, thousands of hours of radio.
Yep.
And it pulls from that based on the signal strength detected from Bluetooth.
Okay.
If it's a specific signal strength, it knows exactly where to pull from the curated historical radio, and it plays that. That's how we can see patterns emerge when it starts talking to us. Very powerful.
That's amazing. I mean, that's really cool, and that's the one thing I we hadn't talked in years, apart from last year when we first got you back in the show, and because you had disappeared for a while.
I was paralyzed.
I guess I oversimplified that one, didn't I? But when people would ask me, people ask me all the time, what do you think of apps? Your apps kind of fell out of my mind a little bit. No offense. I just had forgotten about them. And why, when people are listening, and we have about 2 minutes left, why do when people say, well, do apps work? How do you respond it from your point of view?
So here's the explanation of that. Back in the beginning, in the 2010s, when apps started becoming popular on the phones, we saw a bunch of fakery.
Yes.
We saw a lot of apps, like the Ghost Searcher, this and that, and they were all fake. Ben Hansen, a former FBI agent, who was on Fact or Fake Paranormal Files on the Sci-Fi Network, he took one of those very popular apps. I won't say the name of it, but it's an Echo something app. And that Echo app with the little spinning thing was fake. It was totally fake. And he took the code. He looked at the source code because they failed to obfuscate the code. It was all gibberish. Then there was a ghost searching little there was a ghost app. I forget the name of it, but it was also fake from Utah. And so that's when I, as a software engineer with a degree in engineering, said enough is enough. I'm going to make a real software-based paranormal tool that uses STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, period. And that's what I've done.
That's amazing. How can people find your apps?
GhostHunterApps.com.
You can't be much more simpler than that.
Yeah, GhostHunterApps.com.
And we got to get you back on. We said this last time. We got to get you back on because we need to just talk about the apps. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to have you back on, talk about the apps, and maybe we could play some examples of recordings and stuff as well, so that people can understand. Because I haven't used any of yours in a while, and I really need to. So
I'm going to send you the Vossibus Mark II and the SCD Archon. I'll get those over to you. And I have this year Android and iOS apps coming out. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. Once again, you can GhostHunterApps.com, as well as I demand you folks to go to UFOcurrents.com and check out the articles that Anthony's written, as well as check out his books. They are incredible. Anthony,
thank you, Greg.
You've given us so much tonight. Thank you so very much. What a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Greg. And GhostBox Radio, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
You're awesome. Thank you. We'll talk soon. We'll be back tomorrow with Rick McCallum. Maybe. Everyone, have a fantastic night.
Come see the train.